So that should be a topic near and dear to your heart.
Okay, folks, it's time to sit down. Okay, the time is approximately 6 p.m. on May 25th, 2023. Farragut Board Mayor and Alderman meeting is now in order. All Farragut Board Mayor and Alderman meetings are public notice per Tennessee state law. Our meetings can be seen live on Charter Channel 193, TDS Channel 3, as well as the Farragut YouTube channel and our website. This meeting will also be recorded and can be viewed at a later date on the Town of Farragut YouTube channel, as well as Charter Channel 193 and TDS Channel 3. During the regular posted agenda, all comments or questions from the Farragut residents will now be in person. If you're interested in speaking, we ask that you fill out a blue card, and they're located up there at the door, with your name, address, and agenda number, and turn it in to the town recorder sitting down here on my left. And prior to the meeting, and the mayor, or in his absence, the vice mayor, shall maintain the control of the meeting to provide a professional, objective environment. So please read the posted comment protocol and understand there will be a 5-minute limit for each speaker. And please stay on topic, as at the end of tonight's business meeting, there will be some time reserved for other public comment that does not pertain to an agenda item under the citizens' comment agenda. We'll start with a meeting call to order, and let's do a silent prayer and then follow that up with the Pledge of Allegiance to our country's flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I will now ask town recorder to please take attendance roll call for a quorum.
Alderman Burnett.
Here.
Alderman Meyer.
Here.
Vice Mayor Povlin. Here. Alderman White.
Here.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams here. Thank you, Allison. Any agenda amendments?
No, sir.
None? Okay, I'll ask for a
Move to
motion. Okay, all in favor of approval, please say yes.
Yes.
Let the record show the May 25th agenda has been approved as stated. Okay, is there any amendments to the minutes?
No, sir.
None?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor of approval, please say yes. Yes. Let the record show the May 11th, 2023 minutes have been approved and will be recorded as official minutes of that meeting. Okay, next will be the mayor's report. I want to start by thanking our staff, the volunteers, and sponsors for another successful Bob Watt fishing tournament for our kids. This year we had a record catfish caught that weighed in at 5.8 pounds. So that was caught on chicken liver. So next will be I'll yield the floor to the Vice Mayor for her report.
I just have this. I wanted to congratulate the graduates of Farragut High School, class of 2023. Mayor Williams, Alderman Burnett, and I were able to be on the field to watch them graduate. My cheeks always hurt at the end of that because all you do is smile and congratulate everybody, and they're all so beautiful in their own ways. And it is that is one of the nicest things about being an elected official is that we get to sit on the field and watch these young people graduate. So that's all I had.
Sore knuckles from that. Fist bumps.
Yeah.
Okay, any other aldermen have anything to report?
No, sir.
None, okay.
Sure. If
Yep, okay.
there's a shortage of chicken liver at the store, it's because my son's been buying it every day, but based on the 6-pound catfish that was caught. So
They are hard to come by during that period of time. Okay, we will start with the first reading of ordinance for public hearing and review. Be ordinance 23-05, an ordinance to amend the Farragut zoning map for 630 Everett Road. Mark, you're up.
Okay, all right, Mark Shipley, present this item. This is a parcel that actually predates the town, and now it's surrounded by Berkeley Park to the east, Battery of Berkeley Park to the north and northwest, and south is Hickory Woods. The parcel is actually accessed off of Everett Road. There's a long driveway that provides access to this parcel. Part of that driveway was made into a walking trail easement when the Battery of Berkeley Park was platted a few years ago. This rezoning wouldn't affect that at all. Basically, the property is currently zoned general single-family residential R2. And that's a zoning district that is really designed for subdivisions and lots that are generally less than half an acre. They're requesting to rezone that to R1, which is the rural residential district, really in order to be able to have chickens on the property. The property is 2.3 acres, and the R1 district allows agricultural uses on tracts that are more than 1 acre. This property's not part of a subdivision. It really can't be further subdivided because of its current access. The R1 district is consistent with the future land use map, which is very low density residential. And frankly, it's more consistent with the size of this property, which is over 2 acres. It's really more of an R1 rather than R2 type of property. So the staff recommended approval of this when it was presented to the Planning Commission at their April meeting, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the rezoning to the Board of Mayor and Alderman. And the staff recommends approval of ordinance 23-05 on first reading, namely because of the size of the property being really compatible with this zoning district and the fact that it is consistent with the future land use map.
I'm going to move to approve ordinance 23-05 on first reading.
Second.
Okay, do we have any resident comments?
No, sir.
None signed up, okay. Discussion, I'll start out with Alderman Burnett.
no questions,
No
Mayor.
questions. Alderman Meyer,
The change makes sense to me. I'll be supporting it.
Alderman White,
No questions.
Vice Mayor.
I have nothing.
Okay, I don't have anything as well. It is correct for what they're asking for. So with sufficient discussion, I'll ask Town Recorder to please take a roll call vote.
Alderman Burnett.
Yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Poblin.
Yes.
Alderman White.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Thank you, Allison. Let the record show that the amended ordinance 23-05 has been approved by roll call vote on first reading. Okay, next will be ordinance 22-06, an ordinance of the Town of Farragut, Tennessee, adopting the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, and ending June 30th, 2024.
Mayor, thank you very much. This is a process that the board and our staff have been going through for the past 6 months. And this FY 2024 budget really sets our goals and priorities for the fiscal year starting July 1st and ending June 30th of 2024. And these goals are addressed through the budget process to make sure that we're meeting our strategic plan initiatives, which were really updated just last month by the board. One is our vision, and what does our vision do? Really tells us where we want to go in the future. And you can see our new vision statement is Farragut is setting the standard for quality of life with a beautiful, close-knit, connected, engaged community where individuals, families, and businesses thrive. And how are we going to get there with our vision is our mission and values. And Farragut's an appealing and engaged community set apart by a proactive and dedicated team committed to integrity, adaptability, and friendly service. With our strategic plan, we have a set of critical success factors, which again were recently updated and modified. All of these on the screen are in areas of focus that we have in our budget where we prioritize funding and make sure that we're meeting these goals and objectives each and every year. And then within these, each of our departments will have priorities that they set on what they need to get accomplished throughout the year. And as I mentioned earlier, this whole budget process started really in January of this year, and then our formal process with the board started in February with several workshops looking at all of the different funds that we have, reviewing our general fund, our CIP fund, the different changes that we plan on making in next year's budget. And I want to go through each of those quickly tonight, but I wanted to at least run through those with the board and those in the public that are interested. So first we have our general fund. And if you think about the general fund, this is really the bulk of the activities and operations that the town does. We receive our revenues mostly from sales tax, but we have several different funding sources throughout the year. Our FY23 budget to estimate it showed about $1.965 million more in estimated funding than in what we budgeted. So that's a good thing. It's over 14.5% over our FY23 budget. And so then we look at our FY24 proposed budget, and overall we're projecting a relatively flat estimate for our revenue, mostly due to the fact that we just don't know there's a lot of recession fears out there. Obviously, we have higher interest rates that's affecting the economy. And certainly right now, as everyone's seen in the news, we're dealing with the crisis of the debt ceiling limit, which has still not been resolved yet. So all these are kind of up in the air about how our economy will function and run. And so that's why we wanted to be conservative heading into next year's budget. But the number one revenue source that we do have in our revenues are the local sales tax. And local sales tax is basically anything that's purchased in the town of Farragut. The town receives 2.25% of that purchase price. And of that, we actually get half, and Knox County Schools receives the other half. So for this year alone, and year to date through March, we're up about 11.8% over the prior year, which is great. But looking at the proposed FY24 revenue, we're projecting about 6.25% increase over our FY23 estimate for a total of $9.35 million in sales tax revenues next year. Our next largest tax revenue source is our state shared tax appropriations. These come in the form of allocations from the state to the town through population. So right now we have 23,506 citizens in the town based on our last census count. It's increasing by about $1 from where it was last year. I can remember looking at this 20 years ago, and it was around $70 per person. So you can see how much that's increased over the course of the last 20 years just in the state shared revenue source. A bulk of that goes to the general fund for different activities. Some of that goes to the state street aid fund, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Also, a large revenue source for the town is wholesale taxes, and these are wholesale drink taxes. So anytime someone buys an alcoholic beverage at either a package store, liquor store, or one of our restaurants in town, we receive revenues from that. This has been a relatively stable revenue source for the town over the last 10 years, and we can continue to see that grow, though, as businesses grow, as more businesses tend to provide these beverages to those that would want them, and we have new retailers coming in next year, then we should certainly see this increase slightly from year to year. One category that we see a lot of change in from year to year, really based on the economy, is building permits and license revenue. We always budget this rather conservatively. We do not anticipate say a large increase in the number of housing units for next year, but certainly we do have some commercial that we know is going to be coming in next year's budget. So for next year, we've proposed a number of $559,000 in revenue, which would be down slightly, and hopefully we'll see more than that at the end of the year. If you look at total general fund revenue sources, again, you can see local sales tax makes up the bulk of that at 60%, and you can see how the remainder comes in. But we have a total revenues projected for next year of $15.5 million in the budget. Now I'm going to focus on expenditures for general fund. Next year we have a projected amount of $10.3 million in expenditures, which is about 10% higher than it is over the FY23 estimate. And what goes into these expenditures? There's development services, there's maintenance, there's parks and recreation, construction management, internal operations, and all these things go in order to make sure that we're responsive to our citizens' needs throughout the community. Some of the biggest things that we do have for our cost are personnel. You know, we're a service industry. We provide services to the community. And so 64% of our funding this year will be personnel costs. And that's been a relatively consistent number over the past 3 fiscal years. Some new costs that we will have next year, we call them program changes, but these are personnel related. And this is to add 1 new position for a staff accountant position, and then also to have a new category of Public Works Technician 2 that we will add to the budget for a total of $115,000 to next year's budget. Also, when we talk about personnel, we need to talk about COLA and merit and our package that we provide to our employees to stay competitive in the market. We've reviewed all the surrounding municipalities and those throughout the state over the last couple of years to determine where we ranked when it comes to merit and to make sure we're staying competitive with those areas. So this year we're proposing a 5% merit and a 5% cost of living adjustment and a 3% merit package for all employees. And then we know that our health insurance costs will be increasing, and we propose a 4% cost to the budget for that. Total general fund program changes would be approximately $558,000, and then we have 1 equipment fund program change at $35,000 for a total of $593,000 for next fiscal year. If you look at our revenue projections, revenue expenditure actuals over the last several years, what you can see there in the green is that our revenues have exceeded our expenditures, which is a good thing. We've been fiscally conservative. We've been careful in how we spend our dollars. And so what we do with those additional revenues each year is pay cash for many of the other funds that we have, which I'll go into here in a minute, and also pay cash for many of our capital projects that we have upcoming as well. If you look at our general fund balance, we have an assigned fund balance of $6 million. That's unchanged from last fiscal year. And then we have transfers to other funds from the general fund to ADA Capital, Equipment Fund, State Street Aid, and to our capital investment fund as well. So I'm going to start off tonight in our other funds with our State Street Aid fund. This fund is primarily used for resurfacing our streets in the town. We have consistent revenues here based on the State Street Aid fund I just mentioned earlier from the state. We get revenues of $868,000, but this year we're increasing the amount that we're putting in from general fund to the State Street Aid fund to $500,000, which gives us additional monies to put toward those resurfacing projects. We project a total expenditure of $1.5 million in FY24 and an ending fund balance of $1.8 million at the end of FY 2024. Our tourism fund, relatively new fund for us, just the last three fiscal years. But we have a hotel motel tax that makes up the bulk of the revenues for this fund. It's 3% of all hotel and occupancy stays in the town of Farragut. We also have some ARPA funding that is coming in through the State of Tennessee Tourism Department as well for a total revenue of $555,500. With expenditures of $501,000, our ending fund balance is projected at $562,744 in the tourism fund. I just mentioned the ARPA fund. This is monies that we have already received through the federal government, roughly $7 million over the last 2 years. We're currently waiting on some additional TDEC grants to add to these funds possibly. We're working on that currently, but there's several funds or several projects in this fund, including town hall renovations, stormwater parking, fiber connections to all of our facilities here in the town, a stormwater master plan, and stormwater improvements. And all of these projects will need to be at least contracted for by December 31st of 2024. So we're working diligently on trying to make sure we have all these projects at least started by that time. Our next fund is our equipment replacement fund. If you think about equipment, it's all of our vehicles and equipment that we have in the town. This next year, we have, I think, 3 vehicles that we're planning on purchasing or replacing for next year at a total of $111,000. We do have a transfer in from the general fund of $215,000 to make sure that our long-term financing for this fund is adequate. So our ending fund balance in this fund is approximately $1 million. Our ADA Capital Projects Fund. This is one where we put money in each year to help with ADA capital projects. We have done many projects over the last few years. We do not have any specific projects planned for this year, but we do have $150,000 that we'll put in to this fund. Much of our ADA improvements that we've done over the last couple of years have been done through the State Street Aid Fund with resurfacing projects, and we do curb ramp improvements at that time. So we spent quite a bit on many of the new curb ramps in town that you see up and down the streets that have been repaved recently. Probably our second largest fund behind the general fund is our capital investment program. And we've talked about this at several workshops over the last couple of months with the board. So I won't go into any other projects unless the board has specific ones they'd like to address tonight. But in general, for FY24, we budget for this fiscal year. We plan for all the other fiscal years from 25 to 29, and knowing that those can change from year to year depending on priorities in each fiscal year. But in FY24, we plan expenditures of $17.2 million with, expenditures of $17.2 million. We have revenues of a little over $8 million, transfers in from the general fund of $7.5, and then we are using CIP reserves of $1.679 million. At the end of 2024, we plan on having an available fund balance of $7.2 million in the capital investment program. Our insurance fund, this is mostly a closed retiree pension cost, but it also includes retiree health insurance as well. We do not plan any transfers in this year from general fund, but we do expect an ending fund balance of approximately $378,705 in the insurance fund. So I've gone through the budget relatively quickly, but if the board has any questions or any comments or any suggestions or anything you'd like to change between first and second reading, certainly we can try to address those for you this evening, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay.
Make a move to approve on first reading.
Second.
Okay. Do we have any resident comments?
No, sir.
None? Okay. Discussion. We'll start off with Alderman Meyer.
I pass.
Alderman White.
No question.
Alderman Burnett.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I only had one CIP project I wanted to talk a little bit about. I guess just out of the gate, I'd like to see if we could move the Turkey Creek Greenway project up 1 year. So, in my opinion, I know we've talked some about this, but this is the most important missing link in our entire town. You know, this is the connection that connects the west to the east. The gap that it leaves causes, interrupts the connectivity so much that it forces you to go all the way to Kingston Pike and around, and basically blocks you off from one side of the town to the other. A few key points: you could go from the far west side of our town to Anchor Park, and what's even more mind-bending is you could go, say, from McPhee Park to the Cove on North Shore. Now, granted, we'd be leaving the town of Farragut, but there are greenways and sidewalks that get you there once we address this missing link. So just kind of curious, David, from a budget standpoint, what the impact might be if we were to move that project. I know it's over 3 years, but up 1 year.
Sure. I think from a fiscal standpoint, we would be okay to move it up 1 year. And I think the biggest challenge that we have is just we have a number of projects that are going to be starting up next year, and it's just a matter of getting to those and prioritizing those. So it'd just be a matter of when we can get to it next fiscal year. But if the board wants to go ahead and put it as a funding for next year, then we could do that, and then as soon as we could get to the project, we would.
Sure, and clearly I'm for it unless you were to tell me we just can't handle it. I mean,
we're
if
Probably
that's
ask
the
Daryl
case,
that,
you tell me that, but
Maybe need to comment on.
That's right.
Well, it's also, we're still still doing projects from this fiscal year. We're about to move in the next fiscal year.
Well, we have projects from 6 years ago. I think we're still
well,
trying to finish
that I
up. So some of those can take some time to get
Some
through
of
the
them,
process.
I mean, the projects that are under our control. Union Road is a federal nightmare, so,
Yep.
But yeah, that's what I'd like to bring up. It's currently in 25, 26, 27,
it's in 26, 27, 28.
Yeah, now.
26, 27, 28, and moving it to 25, 26, 27.
No, it's actually, I think this
had it
this
in
slide
my
may be
notes.
wrong. I'm sorry. It's in 25, 26, 27 currently.
Yeah.
And so I think Alderman Burnett, you're talking about moving it to 24, 25, 26.
Oh, so it would impact this year's budget.
It would, yes, ma'am.
Sure would, yeah.
I guess I'm confused. So do this, I know it's all cute and funny, but do the staff have time to add this extra project to the next year? Because if you don't, I'm not for the timing. I think the budget needs to reflect the actual projects that need to be in place. So
I would
if
just need to
we-
sit down with our staff and really look through all the projects that we have to make sure that we could handle another project.
Right now, I'm comfortable with the timing the way it is,
Okay.
because I think it actually, the budget reflects, to the best that we can reflect, the timing of the projects. And so if just because we move the money from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 24, does not mean the staff are going to have any extra time to start working on it in 24. So I don't understand the point of moving it.
Well, nobody said they didn't have time, and that's exactly why when I presented it, I said, David, if the staff doesn't have time, I won't be for it. So nobody's saying we have to do this. The staff has to have time. I'm saying I think the town needs it. But if Daryl and his team can't do it, then it's not a good idea.
We'll be happy to look at that over the next couple of weeks and bring that
I'm
back.
interested in looking at it. I understand both points here. I know that Daryl's team is inundated, and that doesn't mean, I mean, that includes not just our projects and what we're trying to achieve, but also what's going on in the town and all the building that's going on. And we've got a new assistant town engineer who's just getting his feet underneath him, and he's already got, 5 traffic calming votes he's got to organize, and so it's, he's come in, he's drinking from a fire hose, so. I agree with you, the necessity of getting this. This is a missing link. But I do have concerns about stretching our staff thin, so I'd like to see that.
One of the things that we've talked about was to do the hybrid. And I would really, and that's a design thing. I think a whole lot of what could be done in the short term is in design and looking at the hybrid. But I don't know how quick we could speed up right-of-way acquisition. That's usually that's the quicksand we normally run into. So, because it's all dependent upon what kind of success they have with working with that. But if I remember correctly, we've not got a whole lot of right-of-way acquisition here that we need to deal with if we do the hybrid, as opposed to the one that required quite a bit of right-of-way acquisition. So that may be something that that design can do, but it would spare engineering from really getting involved with it at the moment or in the short term. But again, we're going to run into right-of-way acquisition. When we can start construction, that's another story. again, Darrell just got a new guy. We got to have really somebody that looks after this project because they don't look after themselves. And so I guess we can attempt it as far as seeing what design comes up with on the, as far as the hybrid and see how that would be affected as far as the timing. I think we'd all love to have it sooner, but I think this would be our start, would be to see where we would be at design-wise and how the timing would work with right-of-way acquisition and construction. I know that it don't seem like a whole lot of money, but that is a tough route to overcome as far as that that curve there. So I would at least like to see design work to be
24.
looked at as far as and see where we're at, because we might be good, we might not. But once we see what the design is going to be and how much right-of-way that we're going to have to deal with as far as acquisition, then I think that right there will determine if we can elevate the timing or not. I don't know that we can. David, you got
No, sir.
anything? Okay. On that subject is what I'm getting at. Next subject. And that would be you, Vice
All
Mayor.
right, I have one thing. We have funding in our economic development, professional services. For Farragut West Knox Chamber of Commerce, we've allotted $35,000 for them. For Farragut Business Alliance, we've allotted $55,000. I would like for it, at the very least, in the Farragut Business Alliance, have it delineated out, Shop Farragut $35,000 and the community events $20,000. And here's my concern. The FBA is kind of evolving, and they are proposing a change to their bylaws that allows for participation from Knox County businesses. I believe ultimately that undermines the founding of the reason the FBA was founded, but I believe it also undermines the Shop Farragut program, which has its roots in Buy in Farragut. The Shop Farragut program was, Buy in Farragut program was instituted to help support businesses in the town of Farragut. The Shop Farragut program is supposed to help the businesses in the town of Farragut gain a little bit more visibility in the marketplace. We all know, I just did the math, this year's projected revenue, 72.7% of the projected revenue is business generated. So that's a hefty amount that we're relying on our businesses to produce and generate. And if we can't come to an agreeable MOU, I think that we need to probably not fund the Shop Farragut. The Shop Farragut needs to be what works for the town, not necessarily what works for FBA. So if we can split those out, and if we can't come to an agreed MOU, my proposal is that we not fund the Shop Farragut portion of it, allow them to continue to do their community events, and fund those as community events. That is, so it's tentative to me, depending upon a finalized MOU.
When do you expect that?
I would like to see one by the end of June.
I think staff has been working on that.
Okay. And it gives clarity as to what our expectations are about what we're prioritizing, which is the Shop Farragut program, so.
Okay.
So I have a question for the Vice Mayor. So then, how does that get reflected on these documents then?
Well, it just-
Because the
it's
net
shown-
amount's still the same, right?
Yes,
So
it's
just gonna
shown
be-
in
that
the
document will
budget.
change.
It would just
Okay.
delineate out, then we
Right.
can, then we have a clarity about what
Okay.
how we're distributing those funds.
So are we going to be able to vote on this tonight, the
This-
budget?
Yeah, is this an
'Cause
amendment to
that's
the
a
budget?
that'd be amendment, right?
It's kind of a,
Well, I think I think if I'm understanding what your intent is that it's still to keep the $55,000 in the budget. It's just to delineate out
Yeah.
two items, you'll make that decision during the MOU process whenever you approve the MOU about how much you want to give. And if there's additional dollars that are not allocated, then those dollars would just kind of get absorbed into the general fund.
Okay.
Is that all you got on that one, Scott? Drew?
That's all I got.
You got, okay. David?
Just so I understand, mainly for me, so what you're saying is that if they still have businesses from Knox County involved in their events, then you don't want to give them any money. Is that basically what it is?
Well, for the Shop Farragut, I want to, they have a couple of community events I think that we should consider funding as community events. A community event, to me, is different than a Shop Farragut event. A community event, like, for instance, we have, the lawn chair series comes in. The lawn chair series gets all kinds of different sponsors. They're not necessarily from Farragut. And that's okay, because that's their event, and if they were a nonprofit, we would probably give them some community event grant money, because it's such a great community event. But they go out and they get sponsors, and they're from all over the place, and it's not a Shop Farragut event. So I'm comfortable. They have Dock Dogs. It's a 3-day event, which the community really enjoys, and Harvest Fest. And if they're going to continue to do those community events, that's fine. But that's not Shop Farragut. Shop Farragut is about Farragut businesses. And if we can't come to a decision, really what I want them to do is get back to just being Farragut businesses.
But doesn't that still bring people to Farragut, which is what we're after? Because after all, we spend millions of dollars to our parks for recreation. Well, we don't say people from other counties can't come here, so we're not going to fund them. I just don't understand. It's not that much money.
It isn't.
And if you get people to come in here, that's what we want. They may see something to shop in.
I don't disagree with your point. My problem is by changing their bylaws, first they're undermining the reason the FBA was established. The FBA was established to support Farragut businesses. So let me give you an example. In January, they had a health and wellness fair, and in that health and wellness fair, they had Chodo Medi Spa. What does that do for us? We have businesses in the town of Farragut that provide those services, and we're bringing people in to a health and wellness fair and sending them out to Chodo to spend money in Chodo, and then when they're done their Medi Spa, whatever, they're probably going to go to a restaurant out there. That's not the purpose of Shop Farragut, and it wasn't the purpose of the Farragut Business Alliance. So I'm really trying to get them back to seeing Shop Farragut should be of value to new businesses that are considering coming into the area. If they're looking and say, oh, I've got this extra support from Shop Farragut and this extra support from Visit Farragut, I want to be in Farragut proper. But what's the use if you don't have to be in Farragut to participate in the Shop Farragut program?
Well, on the other hand, if you have a business come here from Knox County that owns a business in Knox County and participates some and then says, wow, I really love this place, I'm going to open another store here. So I don't see cutting their money as punishment for trying to bring other people in here, but that's just my opinion.
I understand what you're saying. We need an agreed upon MOU. I'm afraid this is a slippery slope, and we're starting to, that's what the chamber is for, really. And I have some serious concerns about the direction that Shop Farragut is going. Those events were supposed to be an opportunity for Farragut businesses to gain exposure in the marketplace. Now it's become about the event, not about the fact that we're trying to help Farragut businesses be successful. So that's what the Shop Farragut program was established for. So I understand your point.
Okay. We have covered 2 items. Scott, do you have anything in particular?
No, sir.
David?
No, sir.
None. I really don't either. We're going to have to really get this on into a little bit further along. Go ahead and vote, and then if we see something that does not fit, then we can amend.
Sounds good.
Okay? So we have a chance here to go ahead and do a roll call vote because we had no discussion from residents, right? None?
None.
Okay, then
Have we
please.
had a motion yet?
Yeah, we had a motion and a second. So let's go ahead and do the roll call vote, please.
Alderman Burnett.
Yes.
Alderman Meyer.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pavlin.
Yes.
Alderman White.
Yes.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes. Ordinance 23-06 has been approved by roll call vote on the first reading. Okay, next will be, looks like we have 5 business items on tonight's posted agenda to review and consider. We'll start off with approval of professional services agreement with Tunnel and Spangler and Associates, TSW for professional services for the mixed-use town center visioning plan, and updates to the comprehensive land use plan. And you're up, Art.
Yeah, this is, the purpose of this is to approve a professional services agreement with TSW. Really, their main task is to develop a vision plan for our mixed-use town center. They're also going to incorporate other updates that we've made, namely in recent years, to the overall comprehensive land use plan. One of the critical success factors in our current strategic plan is advancing a high-quality built environment. And one of the factors in that is to make updates to our comprehensive land use plan. Since the plan was updated in 2012, we've always used our plans, whether they were policy plans prior to 2012 or the one that we have now. It's been used to help us implement a number of ordinance amendments that have helped create the built environment that we have, like out at the intersection of Campbell Station and Kingston Pike. We also use the plan when we have zoning map amendment requests that are presented to the Planning Commission and the board. So we've, put it to very good use, and in recent years, we've actually looked at priority areas in the town, and we've engaged the community in those different locations to try to see if the plan, the policies and the map that's in the plan were up to date, and if they weren't, to make updates to those. And we've done that. The next area that has come up is this mixed-use town center. And this area, when we first mapped future land use in 2012, the general area at the intersection of Kingston Pike and North Campbell Station Road, really from Glen Abbey Boulevard all the way to Concord Road, was identified as a potential location for a downtown or a mixed-use town center. So a lot of that area has been mapped to that land use. And basically, this idea of having a downtown, because the town is relatively young, we don't have a traditional downtown. We're kind of a series of subdivisions and shopping centers. Throughout the town's history, though, the community has indicated in various plans that they really wanted the town to try to develop this central core, this heart of the town that people would identify as being downtown. So when the plan was updated in 2012, one of the 8 key strategies that was identified in the plan, and probably the most important, was to bring about a downtown. We've been working on this and different elements. We've made some progress on building kind of creating a little bit different look and feel in this general part of the town. But we felt like, given the historical importance of the downtown concept, that when we started to work on this particular portion of town, it might be useful to have an outside group come in and assist the town in developing this community vision document and recommendations based on what they hear. So that's why we budgeted in the current budget, and it's carried over in the proposed budget, $100,000 toward this effort. We sent out a request for qualifications, and we have selected at the staff level TSW as the consultant. Most of their staff would be coming from Chattanooga. They're mostly based out of Atlanta. They have put together a lot of really good plans that are comparable to what we would be looking at. They've won some national awards. They're kind of a combination of landscape architecture, planning, engineering. So they'll be looking at all aspects of the mixed-use town center, how the land's being used, kind of gathering an inventory of what we have now, what has been done up to this point, what's the transportation system like, all those things, public properties, pretty robust plan that they plan to have completed by the end of March of next year. That's in their agreement. So with that, the staff felt comfortable with this firm. I did check on some references. They received very good references. Like I said earlier, they've put together some very impressive plans, and I think they would do so with this particular area. And so the staff recommends approval of the professional services agreement with TSW.
I'm going to move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Do we have any
No, sir.
residents? Nothing. Okay. We'll start off, Alderman Meyer.
The only comment I had was, Mark, on the fee breakdown in Section 2, the Task 2, the Engage and Discover. At first I thought, wow, for $8,000 for 2 vision meetings, that's a lot of money. But then when I looked at the description, it looks like there's a lot more detail than just a bunch of folks sitting around eating pastries and dreaming. There's a lot of data analysis. And so
Yeah.
I'm actually excited about that. I think that having those 2, I think it's 2 meetings, right?
Yes.
Okay, so including
And
the
we
public.
can, I think they're flexible. Once they visit with us, they're within, reason, they would be able to tweak some of this if we felt like, maybe we ought to have one less of these type of meetings and maybe one more of this. I think they would be open to that. But yeah, and that was one thing that we liked about this firm too. They have a lot of innovative ways to engage the community, and so we were pretty impressed with that. I actually listened to one of the team members talk at the TAPA conference a few months ago, and he was really impressive on the kind of visioning that they used in a community outside of Chattanooga. It was really, really cool. But it was mostly transportation related, but it was really good.
Okay, that's
So-
all. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman White, you have sit through one of our extensive workshops before, so I'll pick on you next.
I do have a couple of comments. I think this is a colossal waste of $100,000. It's probably, I've seen a lot of contracts. It's probably the worst contract I've ever seen. It's all toward the provider, not much for the town. If you look at the scope of services and you read down the list, about everything in there is already covered by somebody else doing it. A developer is responsible for providing the tenants, the plans, and then his plans approved by the town to what he's going to build. A developer normally has a construction manager who oversees these plans and makes sure that the contractor is doing what he's supposed to. A contractor would normally have a site superintendent and a project manager who looks over the the site superintendent, make sure he's doing everything in accordance with the plans. And then you add to that the town's inspection department, who's responsible to be on the job every day if necessary and make sure everything is in accordance with what it is. We don't need another set of eyes in here looking at stuff that people have already looked at. And I think the most interesting part of this, of the scope of work, is identify the streams, wetlands, and environmental sensitive areas. Well, what do we do? What's our job? Aren't we supposed to be doing that? He's going to go to the parks, visit the parks, look at our parks, inspect them, tell us what we're doing wrong or telling us we're doing good. I mean, what's he going to do? Go, oh, y'all have done a great job. Thanks. Give me my check. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to spend $100,000 to put somebody to look at things that we're already looking at and have looked at for years. That's my comments.
Okay, sir, thank you. Alderman Burnett?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very important part of town for us. I think we could use all the help we can get, including extensive public outreach and feedback. We need that. We need a lot of that. I don't think we can get enough, and so having a firm help us get that and compile that data and look at the way other cities have handled areas such as this, I think it's a wise move, so I'm good with it.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
I'm going to agree with Alderman Burnett. I know, as an example, the Kingston Pike sub-area that we just went through, for Mark to put that together, how many really different areas? There's 4 or 5.
4.
And
yeah.
putting the visioning boards together for all of that, and then compiling all of that information. And that was, pretty straightforward as far as land use. And we're talking about a mixed-use town center in the suburbs, when we know that you can't really do urban design, but what does suburban mixed use look like, and how do you accomplish it in an area where you're not going to put multifamily there? It's because of the area, it's really more going to be townhomes and single-family detached, and this is complicated. Along with that is what it can realistically happen, and having someone who's experienced in getting public input. The public has been through a lot of different designs for the Ford property. They have some idea of what those projects look like and what is feasible. And I really think we need somebody outside, a consultant that can come in and bring the community together to really have those hard discussions about what is realistic. And I think I'm interested in the market analysis of what they're doing with the commercial properties that we currently have there, what commercial's coming in, and understanding the space that's available to us. Having a good transportation, pedestrian, bicycle, multi-use trail facility, we've got to really think through that, because we're trying to connect into the community, the Red Mill and the Kingsgate area, and bringing that in, and how do we do that? And I think this would be too big a task for our community development department to take on. I think we'd be spending a good amount of change on community development employee time to begin with to get this done. So I think this is a wise use of our funds.
Okay, well, it is a lot of money, there's no doubt. We have went through numerous corridor studies. We did the one at Watt Road, and where we had a tremendous amount of public input from the property owners, and also from the residents that lived around that area. That was a fair thing to do, and we learned a lot from that. we learned that really we were burning a lot of the staff time to do these things. And we also done the one over on Parkside Drive where Top Golf is at. And we did not have the input there like we had at Watt Road because there's just not a whole lot of Farragut residential over there. But we did learn a lot as far as what David was talking about, Alderman White was talking about, as far as the developer, the different contractors, and we suffered through all that with Top Golf, and that was a learning experience on its own from start to finish. When we went to the area that was out near McPhee Park, that was probably the most interesting one there because we learned from the residents what they wanted to see and what they did not want to see. And they did not want to see commercial property out there. They did not want to see strip malls out there. They did not want to see apartment complexes out there. What they wanted to see was basically single-family resident type of buildings. Of
If
course,
they were going to see anything at all.
well, when you've got 200 and something acres sitting out there, something's going to be there. Because I didn't have any residents step up and say they were going to buy that property, although one did, okay? He did buy it. And he'll do what he wants to do with it. We don't have no control over that as long as it's within the land use plan and the zoning. What it boils down to is we learned a lot from that. When we went through the quarter study on Boring Road, we learned even more. And we had even more resident comment. When you look at the town center area, like Mark said, it goes from Concord Road all the way over to,
Glen Abbey.
let's say, right past the Glen Abbey, and you can say that that's a pretty big area. We have a lot of residential in parts of it. One big portion of it is surrounded by a residential area. We had the town center area that really had no residential area around it. It was kind of an island. And but the rest of it is not. And so when we try to get a developer involved with that, they've all got different ideals about how that piece of property and other pieces of property can be either developed or redeveloped. And at some point in time, you're going to see part of the town center area to be redeveloped. We have two parcels that's not been developed, and we have some that will probably at some time or another be redeveloped. Nothing is forever. We've seen that with the corners up over here where we've got Starbucks and 35 North. We had a lot of rundown property. That has changed. It's because we have been very diligent about trying to make it change. In this case, we're at a point to where there has been a big clamoring for public input on this particular corridor. So to actually do what we need to do in this area is to get the people involved that live around it and that walk it every day and spend their time there. And this is a way to do it. Yes, it's very expensive, but if we do this, then I think we've done the best we can do with what the folks have asked us to do. So that's my input.
I would say we did interview them, some of the staff, and one of the things we did reiterate was propose things that are doable and realistic. We wanted that. We also want to look at redevelopment, not just the undeveloped land, but how do how would we want to see redevelopment in this area? And just kind of having somebody from a different perspective, an outside perspective, just kind of look at the situation, the area. to give us some things that maybe we haven't thought of. That was kind of where we were coming from. Thought it might be beneficial, especially the financial element of it, because none of us are financial analysts, and they do have that as one of their components. Because it doesn't do any good to create a plan if nobody can do it. So we really want them to create something that's realistic and doable.
Okay, any more discussion from the board members?
Just one more.
Okay, go ahead.
Wouldn't
Alderman
this,
White?
wouldn't this been a great idea to get this before we dove off the high board into the mixed-use center? I mean, the apartments are already going up. We've already started it, and we're already in it. Now we're talking about we need advice to figure out how to do it. It just seems kind of backward to me.
Well, that's, there are a certain amount of people that feel that way. But what those people don't realize is we started the town center in January. We discussed it all the way up to August before any residents ever got involved with asking about what was going on. And these were open meetings. I mean, we've got people sitting out here now. They could have been sitting out here then. But they chose not to. Now, I cannot go knock on people's doors and tell them that we're going to have this conversation. You need to come down here and talk about it. I can't do that because I don't know who cares what we're doing or who does not. But we did give the opportunity for public input. There just wasn't much of it until right at 8.5 to 9 months later. So to say that we dove into it, no. We actually had a developer that was going to buy a piece of land, and what he was trying to do, we had never done before. And we all worked together with the developer, just like what you were talking about before. We worked with him, and we worked with the architects, and we worked with some of the vendors in trying to do what we thought was the best. And I guess that was really what our first attempt was. Did we fail miserably? I don't think we did. We've got a pretty nice place going up. We're starting to hear what restaurants are going to be there, and so it's.
I'm not saying that, Mr. Mayor, that it's a mistake. What I'm saying is, wouldn't it have been nice to have had all this information before we started?
Alderman
Not
White,
come now.
I can give you some background. So the first the comprehensive land use plan update that we're currently working under was adopted in December of 2012. In that comprehensive land use plan, there's some policies, and one of them was it suggests that you take another look at your land use plan 5 years, review it. And so in 2017, we put together a steering committee to review the plan. And what we ended up doing in that steering committee is we picked several different corridors that, because we couldn't just redo the whole plan. So we looked at different corridors where we were seeing some growth. So we did Watt Road, we did the Outlet Drive, we did McPhee Road, and we have just finished Kingston Pike, the Kingston Pike sub-area. We had picked those four, and then the town center we wanted to revisit in 2017. We're like, maybe we should take a look at this again. How realistic is it? Because quite frankly, if you look at the drawings, they're very urban in form, and they don't build like that, but two, we've definitely heard from residents that they don't necessarily want to urbanize. They like pedestrian oriented, they like walkable, but hey, don't urbanize Farragut. So, that's a narrow line. So this is kind of where we are in the process. Through going through all of those different public visioning workshops, we realized during our last budget, before you came on board, our last fiscal year 22, are we in 23? 23.
23,
So
24.
our February retreat of last year, we talked about, okay, this is going to be a big, and we had just finished the big thing from November 21. We did the Kingston Pike sub-area, and that took forever and a day for you guys to put all that together. That was a lot of work, and we realized looking at the mixed-use town center again, just to review it, is going to be a bigger push than our staff can handle.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we are. It's, the plan calls for us to review every 5 years. We're at more than 10 years. Typically, if you look at Farragut's history, we planned in 91, we had a big plan adopted. In 2001, we had another big plan adopted. In 2012, we had another big, really should be on our fourth planning, but we've built out so much that we're now just kind of addressing this plan and working with this plan. So that's what
Okay.
this is.
I understand.
Okay, with discussion closed, I will now ask the town recorder to please take a roll call vote.
Alderman Burnett,
Yes.
Alderman Meyer,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Povlin,
Yes.
Alderman White,
No.
Mayor Williams.
Yes. Okay, let the record show that the request has been approved as presented with professional service agreement with TSW. Next will be approval of contract with Vero Services.
Yes, sir. In February, the board approved a contract with Avera Advisors to conduct an information technology 5-year strategic plan and other various projects relating to the plan and the town's IT infrastructure. This agenda item is to approve the cost of the development of the SharePoint platform for the employee collaboration. SharePoint is a collaboration software tool, and it has been identified as a tool that would allow the staff to collaborate on files and projects. The software is included in the Office 365 suite that's currently utilized by the town employees, so no additional software will be needed. Avera will be working with Travis Ramsey, our IT manager, to rebuild the Microsoft 365 to fully utilize the platform services. The rebuild will include migrating from the enterprise to governmental licensing to take advantage of the public sector discount pricing, implement best cybersecurity practices and configuration, migrate end-user mailboxes, and design and construct the SharePoint team sites. Motion is to approve a contract with Avera Advisors to develop the SharePoint collaboration infrastructure in the amount of $11,608.96.
Move
So
to
moved.
approve. Oh, go ahead. Oh, second.
Okay, do we have any,
No, sir.
no residents? Okay. We'll start off with Alderman White.
No, sir. No discussion.
Alderman Burnett.
No questions.
Alderman Meyer.
Pass.
Vice Mayor.
I have nothing.
I don't either. This is pretty straightforward. With sufficient discussion for the contract, I will ask all in favor of approval vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Okay, let the record show the contract has been approved as requested. Next will be approval of bids for contract 2023-11, Mayor Bob Leonard Park, West Baseball Diamond.
Lauren Cox, Park Manager. Earlier this year, we found hazardous debris in our West Diamond baseball field at Mayor Bob Leonard Park. That baseball field is the one on the Harrison side of the park. Parks and Recreation Department worked with the Public Works Department, went out to the site and dug a little into the soil and found out that it was more of an issue than we first had realized. So we're going to need to remove at least 4 inches of infilled soil and replace it with clean athletic field mix soil. And that is approximately 420 tons. Public Works and our park facility operator will begin removing the infield on June 1st. And pending the approval of this bid, we'll start getting deliveries of infield mix on June 19th. We had 2 quotes for the project. American Sports Fields came in at $40,500. Site One Landscape Supply came in at $41,810. American Sports Fields was a low bid, and they also had really good references with the city of Pigeon Forge and Knox County with their sports park. And so we would propose to approve the bid and award the contract to American Sports Fields for their low bid of $40,500.
To approve.
Second.
Okay. Any residents?
No, sir.
None, okay. Start out with Alderman Burnett.
No questions.
None. Alderman Meyer.
Pass.
Alderman White.
No questions.
Vice Mayor.
I have nothing.
I do not have anything either. It's way cheaper than synthetic turf. So, With discussion closed, I'll ask all in favor vote by approval by saying yes.
Yes.
Let the record show the contract has been approved as requested. Okay, next is approval of change to McPhee Park court lighting regulations.
Ron and I are presenting this tonight on behalf of the Parks and Athletics Council. They voted unanimously to recommend the following changes to the lighting regulations at McPhee. Our current lighting regulations that you have put in place is that lights are only available by reservation. If the courts are reserved, the lights will go off by 9:45 p.m. at the latest. That last reservation is 8:30 to 9:30, and we give a 15-minute grace period for people to get their stuff and get off the courts before their lights go out. The Parks and Athletics Council would like to propose a change that the lights be on nightly from sunset to 9:45 p.m. at the latest, with or without reservations. The modification, they say, is to allow the community access to the courts in the evenings without reservations. Reservations would still be available if you wanted to have a court that is just yours. And they were hoping that also a well-lit space in the evenings would discourage the vandalism in the park. The paid rentals, again, would still continue, but they would be available for drop-in use in the evening hours when lights are required to be able to see. And the proposed motion would be to approve the McPhee Park court lighting to be turned on nightly from sunset until 9:45.
Any resident comments?
Yes, sir.
The motion.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Move to approve.
Well, I don't support this, but I think I'm going to second it just to get this conversation started, because we've got a lot of residents here who would like some input. But please know, I don't support this.
Okay. Then let's start off with whoever you're.
Our first speaker is David Zena.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak about this. I am a resident of Brass Lantern Lane. My lot lies directly behind the pickleball tennis courts.
Okay, give us your name and your address, sir.
David Zena, 12646 Brass Lantern Lane.
It's good to meet you. I've talked to you.
I spoke with you
Yeah.
months ago, Mayor. Thank you. So basically, our position is my house is a two-story home. The park is at a lower level than the surrounding neighborhood. Those lights, when they're on at night, my second story, those lights bleed into my house. They light the backyard. You know, it's one thing to have people utilize that court. That's fine. I'm not against fun. I'm not against the park. But to have those lights on is a tremendous waste of money when no one's there. I think some consideration, if you're thinking about approving this, should be given to seasonality. Right now, it's not too bad in the summertime. We have some nice trees back there, but once those leaves fall, there's nothing that blocks that park from the rear of my home. You know, I'm somewhat disappointed that those lights are as high as they are to start with, because they are intrusive. It's light pollution. You know, it affects our quality of living. And I don't think it's a proper decision from a budget standpoint either. There's technology that can turn those lights on when people drop into the court. Rather than spend all the money on an electric bill, why not spend it on the technology so that they're only utilized when people are there, as opposed to having them on all the time. My understanding is that this was requested because people want to drop in. I'm not a drop-in. I live there 24/7, and it affects us more than those people that want to just stop by and play a game. This is not a game to us. This is our home. This is, the park has been intrusive. You're all aware of the problems that have been there. I won't go off topic. We're talking about the lights, but this is just another addition to the aggravation that the park has caused to us as a resident there. I think most of these people are here tonight to talk about that, so I won't take any more of your time. I just wanted to let you know how we feel about it. I don't think it's fair to us, and I don't think it's being a good neighbor. So just consider those facts when you make your decision, please.
Thank you, David.
Mayor, can I add something?
Huh?
Can I add something?
Do we have any more to talk?
Yes.
I mean, it was to do with what he said, something specifically.
You
that
got
he
notes
said.
on what he said?
No, but I know exactly what he said.
Okay, well, let's get all of our,
Let's get the
Yeah,
public.
it would,
get
it
the
would help
public, and then
all of
we'll
them
go
to
back and
know
we'll address
what
each
I
one.
have to say.
Yeah.
I'm happy to wait till the end.
okay. Next,
All right, and next one is Mark Patty.
Mark, what?
Patty.
Patty, okay.
P-A-T-T-I.
T-I, okay.
P-A-T-T-I-N.
Hi, good evening. Mark Patty, 12663 Brass Lantern Lane. I'm also here representing the Homeowners Association, President Joe Luddick, who would love to be here but cannot be here today, and he's definitely opposed to this for the reasons that David had mentioned. I don't want to repeat the comments that he just mentioned, but I do want to mention that the vision that you just brought up is a very good one, improving quality of life by enabling individuals, families, and businesses to thrive. And this goes against that vision. Because when the lights are on and nobody's there, you're not getting any quality of life improvement by anybody playing, but you're definitely hurting the quality of life of the people who have to watch those lights, even when there's nobody there. So that's all I'd like to just add. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mark, and thank you for not reiterating what's already been told. That's important.
Our
Next.
next speaker is Susan, I believe it's Gartens.
Good evening. Susan Gartenberg, 12662 Brass Lantern Lane. On your website, I looked up the code for light bulbs and light poles, rather, and it specifically says, no pole shall have a negative effect on adjacent properties. It's clearly in the code on your website. These lights are really causing a negative effect in our community. The other thing I wanted to ask is that, might be a little off topic, is about the police. We don't have enough police to enforce these problems that we're having in the park. It's my understanding we only have like 3 police officers assigned to Farragut, is that
I
correct?
think I think there's 4 for everything from Pellissippi West. Pellissippi Park West, there's 4 officers on shift.
Well, anytime anybody's called, they don't respond because there's not enough of them. And the McPhee Road is becoming a nightmare as well, so it would be, I don't know if it's in the budget. I didn't see it on the screen about police force adding more money for additional police. Yeah, I know. I know.
We'll address that here in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And our last speaker is George Ellis.
George Ellis, is that too loud? 12650 Brass Lantern Lane. I hope this comes out straight. I left Florida this morning, cut my vacation short to come up here. This is how serious I think this is. And I'm trying to speak on behalf of those who couldn't make it here. And I believe, as the mayor alluded, that this is the correct process to express opinions face to face. Here we are. So we've lived in our house on Brass Lantern 3 years this coming Sunday. Of all the residents in Farragut, I think we live the closest. Maybe Dave and Pam live a little bit closer than we do. So nothing I will say is conjecture or anecdotal. I spent most of my life dealing with pharma issues, device issues, getting them through the process, trials and all this stuff. The first thing you had to prove was not even does this thing work, it's is there a need for it? I still do not see a need to have these lights on. And I would venture that with the lights to be on and reserved for tennis until shutdown time over the last 3 years, we were moving into the house. So that really doesn't amount to seeing those tennis courts used more than 4 to 5 times per month. The lights may be on, but seeing people play tennis past 8 to 9 p.m. is very seldom seen. Since the vandalism occurred with the basketball switch box, the court is mainly used until dusk. Local players then go home. Then nothing happens until sometimes we get people coming in, turn their cars on, run the lights, play basketball. But as my wife said, when a shop has its lights turned on, they're open for business. When they're not, it's closed. Now, the other factor involves all you guys. If the lights are left on, we can anticipate some criticism of the town's parks and recreations as well as you BOMA members. If taxpayers are driving down McPhee at night, 9, 10 o'clock, in a rainstorm, and they see these lights on, or just drizzling where no one's playing or even can play, the perception will be, well, there goes more taxpayers' wasted dollars. You guys are better than this, come on. We all know LEDs are more economical, but why on earth would this board invite this grief? If one of us drove to a supermarket for an hour, would we leave the lights on with the motor running in the vehicle if we aren't using it? So just change the noun vehicle to tennis court, and then the logic kicks in. Light pollution has been dealt with by other people. I won't go there, but at my house, we're about 40 feet above the ground. The LED lights for the courts are then above roof height. This sends light in. I can sit on my back porch and read a magazine. I don't really want to do that. I've got my own armchair. I like to go outside and just listen to owls and everything else without LED light glaring in my eyes. Now, another issue we got to think about if lights are on, this park has signs that indicate no drinking alcohol, no amplified music, etc. But who enforces these rules? Homeowners have had to go down and confront people in the park breaking these rules. This is not a very clever idea. We didn't sign up for this. We are not a vigilante police force. We feel that if there are park rules, then the people that invented the rules should enforce those rules in the first place. McPhee Park should and could be the crown jewel of Farragut's park system. It's a lovely park. I enjoy dealing with the park and rec people. I enjoy dealing with you guys. I really do. But if these rules can be enforced, we'll be a whole lot better off. So the police do get to the problem. Sometimes we call in at 1 o'clock in the morning, sometimes they don't. So as was said by Dave, points to appreciate are we want the park to be a good neighbor. Us residents should be a good neighbor in return. Voting tonight to switch the lights on means it will be harder to rescind the decision, but I bet $1,000 it will come back to that down the road. Voting to switch the lights on and have McPhee Park look like an all-night truck stop is not, in my opinion, an enhancement to this town. It's great to have this park, but the safety and peace of mind for all residents should come first. Based on the pros and cons, in my opinion, and all the people I've talked to, whether they're... I take it my time's up. But I've only got 4 more pages to go. Please put the people first and turn this idea down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, George. Is that
That's all.
all? Okay, then we'll start with discussion, and Alderman Burnett.
Well, the first thing I was going to start with the first speaker and just address that we don't have this down here correctly. It's not the lights don't turn off. They stay until 9:45, period. They stay on during the summer where people are trying to get there later because it's so hot. And so that's the summertime. It would not be that way the rest of the year. Nobody thinks the winter time till 9:45 makes any sense whatsoever. And the Parks and Rec, the committee said that. We said it both times we've talked about it. The one time we didn't end up voting, and then the second time we ended up voting, everybody agreed. We do not want these lights on indefinitely. Right now, to Mr. Ellis's point, when he looks out at around 8 o'clock or so and he doesn't see people, there's a reason. Like, it's tucked down in the corner with tall trees and there's no sun. There's not enough sun to play pickleball or hit a tennis ball well. So they're gone. And most people don't make those reservations. So it's a clear distinction to point out. The Parks and Rec Committee do not want these lights on forevermore till 9:45. Flat out. The only reason they're on till then is because the summer is a little later. People are up later. It gets dark later. Not dark enough to use the facilities, but only for the summertime. Then when fall and winter come and people don't want to be out there, of course, the committee did not want those lights on then. So it's a pretty big deal that says that here, but that's not what we said and voted on. We said we could decide the hours later, but nobody in that room wanted lights on late when nobody's wanting to use the courts. So that's a pretty big distinction that's put out here that's not correct. I definitely get the neighbors' feedback. I hear it. I empathize with it, and I appreciate it. In terms of, I'll talk about my opinion on the Parks and Rec, because I don't want to sit up here and talk like I am fully representing their entire voice. There is not a lot of reservations utilizing the courts, but there's tons of people using it when the light's out. So it is a drop-in area. I guess I consider myself in my mid-40s younger, although I'm not anymore, but we're just not planners. And folks younger than us, definitely not planners. And so the facilities aren't getting utilized like most people would want because they're not reserved. And if they're not reserved, then they don't have a light on. I would love for there to be a way where we could do something there and have somebody turn on, a light, but then clearly people would just go down there and turn it on, and that would be a nightmare too. And so we know during the summer months is our most active months. The most kids are out there, the most people wanting to play basketball, and they don't reserve courts, and they don't get lights, and the very expensive, low emission, low energy use lights that we put in out there don't hardly ever get used. And so this helps that. This helps the usage during the high, traffic months of summer, and then, into the fall while it's still warm, have access to what we built for them. The other consideration that the committee talked a lot about was security. The amount of garbage going on there at night is just, it gets out of control. People looking to do stupid stuff don't look for lit parks. They absolutely avoid them like the plague. All they want is darkness. Whether they're doing really bad things or they're doing donuts that cause thousands of dollars of damage or driving over grass, they want to go where it's dark. Bottom line, you don't find them anywhere where there's lights. So the other part of the thought was this area, which for some reason attracts a lot of people doing stupid stuff, stays lit. And it in the next few months, or 5 or 6 months, when we get the gates on the park, you're essentially talking about lights shutting off and the gates close, and you ain't getting in unless you drive over the curb and drive through the grass, which there are clearly people dumb enough to do that. But the majority of them will not be back there. So lights off, gates closed, a more secure park than we've ever seen. That's the thought process that got us to lighting the park. So the majority of our community, which wants this and uses this, can use it without reservations. They can still reserve it, so they reserve their court. But I very much get the concern of the residents here. I truly do. I contend with bright soccer lights that are not nice LED lights in that area. And so I get it. But that's the thought process that went into the lights. It's a security thing, and it's also the people of the town want to use it, and the reservation system shuts off at a time, and you can't make a reservation afterwards and get lights for that day. You've got to do it in advance. So this would allow them usage over the summer.
Alderman Meyer?
So a couple comments. I don't think vandalism happens before 9:45 p.m., and so I don't think the lights are going to have any impact on vandalism. I also think the kids that don't plan need to learn how to plan. I think that they need to learn how to be a good neighbor. The stories I've heard from these residents are disturbing to me at best. I don't like the light pole height. I wish that they could be redone. But I guess that's a discussion for another time. I do believe, I know, you're like, I know. But I don't think they're illegal. But I wish they weren't that high, because I would not want to sit out and listen to owls and on my screened-in porch and then read a magazine because the lights are there. I can't support this, and I won't support it because I would never want it for myself.
Vice Mayor Pavlin?
I have a few questions for you, Lauren. So, do we have any other field lights left on for drop-in use in any of our other parks?
No, they're all reservation.
Okay. And we don't have any issues with that?
No.
Ball fields. Is that what you're talking
I
about?
understand.
Yeah,
Well, we have
soccer fields.
volleyball courts and all that other
Nobody
stuff.
goes to soccer fields unless they're reserved, because the team can't show up and not be.
I understand. Has there been any pushback from residents having to rent the courts to have the lights on?
Not with our department.
And have you received any calls from the community asking for the lights to be on?
No.
How many reservations go on beyond 9 p.m.?
We have had, since we opened in March 2022, we have had 4 reservations that have gone past 9 p.m.
Out of how many reservations?
I don't have our total number of daytime reservations. I have the ones that have come with
Nighttime.
lights.
Yeah.
So since March 2022, we have had 125 total reservations that included lights.
So we had 125 total reservations for lights, and only 4 of them have gone past 9.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to get a little off topic because we're talking about the pole heights, which I wouldn't mind taking a look at. I know that we've got gates planned, but I have a concern about what was talked about, people driving over the, through the planted areas to get in, back in the park now that we have the gates. Is there, I'd like for us to look at possibly putting up a fence, kind of like what we have at Mayor Bob Leonard Park. So I'd like to look at that. Do we have any more, because the problem to me seems to be most of it is centered around the basketball courts, is where we're getting a lot of our late night vandals. Do we have any more basketball goals planned?
Yeah.
Yes, I think we had talked internally about adding a couple to the court, to the actual court that's there
Well, I don't support that.
on the sides.
I don't support that. That's just going to gather more people. And I will say this, they are looking for lights. They've broken into the box a few times to turn the lights on at 1 in the morning, is my understanding. I'm wondering if we should consider possibly fencing the basketball area. But I don't support this. I think we should probably take a look at the policy as it is and maybe I was very uncomfortable when we approved the original policy to 9:45. I did not like that. I think that I go to bed at 9. I'm sure a lot of people go to bed at 9. If most of the use is before 9, I don't really have a problem with, I think we should take this back and take a look at the actual reservations and possibly dial this back. This has been an issue. I have a Ivy Farms behind my house, and I have their pool is right behind my house. And they're kind of right on level with our patio, so I get to hear all the noise. I can close my windows though and not hear it. And they have lights I see all winter long, but I don't have to see them in my house. I think we need to figure out how to be a better neighbor here. I understand that the plan for this was designed before Brass Lantern was permitted or allowed or subdivided for that. But we still have to be good neighbors, and I will not support this policy.
Alderman White?
I guess you noticed the mayor called on me last, because I have a long history with these lights at McPhee Park, and I'm not going into all that, but it started way before I became an alderman. I don't think the lights should be there in the first place. They were not in accordance with code when they were put up. They were too tall. I thought they should come down, then be lowered. So that's all I'll say about it, other than the fact that, no, I don't think they should ever be on, because they shouldn't be there. So I will not support leaving them on.
Okay. That was very much to the point there. It's how we need to be. I have concerns about the security. We've got gates on the way that will help, but it seems like these guys have lookouts or something, because it seems like they know when the police are somewhere else and they're down there, but maybe the gates will help that. As far as driving over the curb, a fence does work. So does big rocks. And as soon as
Do landmines. I said so do landmines, but that's okay.
as soon as they start building the Score Hotel over there, when they start digging up those big rocks, maybe they'll give us some of them. We can haul them over and plant some of them in the way to where they can't drive over the curbs. But anyway, at this point, I guess I'll need to call for a vote. And we'll start out with, let's go ahead and do a roll call on this. Allison?
Okay. Alderman Burnett.
No.
Alderman Meyer.
No.
Vice Mayor Pavlin. No. Alderman White.
No.
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, no. Okay. Let the record show the change has been disapproved, and we'll stay with what we got until it's brought up again. Okay, next will be the approval of Resolution 2023-06 for FY 2024, the fee schedule.
Yes, sir. Each fiscal year, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen establishes a general fee schedule for the necessary fees for all town services, including but not limited to the application, filing, licensing, and permit fees. So you'll have, in your packets, you had the listing of all the fees. A couple of the changes for this year: the community development is resubmittal plan review fees, the sign expiration extension of 180 days, the Parks and Recreation, we have the fields for diamond and rectangular grass fields, McPhee Park Great Pavilion only, McPhee Great Lawn and Pavilion rental nonprofits, the Great Lawn and Pavilion rental for the for-profit, and the Assembly Hall Sunday rental for profit and nonprofit. And the motion is to approve Resolution R 2023-06, FY 2024 fee resolution.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, any rest of comments on
No, sir.
our fee product? Okay, none. Alderman Burnett?
No questions.
Alderman White?
No comment.
Alderman Meyer?
Pass.
Vice Mayor?
I have nothing.
Nothing as well. Discussion closed. I'll now ask that all in favor vote by saying yes.
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 Let the record show the resolution has been approved. Okay, that concludes our business items tonight. So next will be the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two things tonight. One is that we do have our Public Works Equipment Rodeo tomorrow at the Public Works Building at 12 o'clock for lunch, and then having a fun day with the crew this week for National Public Works Week. So hopefully some of the aldermen can make it if you have time in your schedule tomorrow. And then also,
I didn't sign up for lunch, but what time do they start? Because that's the fun part. What time do they start doing their rodeo?
we'll start right after lunch. So I'm going to guess 1 o'clock or pretty close to 1 o'clock.
Okay.
But if you do want to have lunch, I suggest you get there early because it may all be gone by the time the guys go through the line once or twice. And finally, in honor of Memorial Day, we will be, both Town Hall and our community center will be closed on Monday, May 29th. So that's all I had to report.
For the ones that's not been to the rodeo, get there early because the lawnmower
Obstacle course.
obstacle course is a lot of fun to watch. So, David, are you going to try to park the truck again?
I don't know what they have. Bud's got new things in store this year,
Okay.
so it may be a little different this time.
Drive the snowplow.
You have to have a license for that.
Yeah. The same thing for
The
the
proper
vacuum truck.
license.
Nope. Okay, Tom is not here tonight, so we do not have a town attorney's report. Do we have any citizen comments?
sir.
Well, that's okay. Well, it looks like the time is approximately 7:40 p.m. and without objection, the May 25th, 2023 Farragut Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting is now adjourned.